Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second day of 100,000 Poets for Change, Mumbai, in association with Kitab Khana. It is a real pleasure to be here with so many talented poets who are so committed to a cause that is truly important in today's world. This evening, we are partnering with Sprouts, and Sprouts is an ecotourism and environmental consulting firm. They have started work on a 7-book climate change action series. I will leave Anand Pindarkar to tell us more about that later. Anand Pindarkar, welcome. And I will tell you a little bit about Anand. Anand is someone I met very recently when he asked me if I would edit one of these books of poetry for him in this 7-book series, which I thought was really an ambitious program. But someone like Anand, when you meet him, you immediately know that with his focus and dedication and commitment, he will get it done. Anand is joining us today. He has just stepped off a bus from the Kars Plateau. And it's the sort of thing that he truly believes in, being close to nature, talking about climate change, talking about the environment, getting other people involved. And this is a mission for Anand. And today we'll be talking to him about these things and what he feels about it. We will also be listening to several poets who have not read their poetry too often on public platforms. I think most people here have only read 1 or 2 poems in the past. And they also come from a very diverse set of professions. So it's really heartening to see how many people are truly interested in issues of climate change and environment and sustainability. And really, really inspiring to meet someone like Anand Pindarkar, who is ensuring that the message gets across. So, Anand, may I invite you to join us? And I would really like to ask you a few questions. Have we lost him? Oh, okay. So let me just tell you a little more about Sprouts. The series of books that they're doing is the outcome of 3 decades of meticulous research by the Sprouts team. And they've been getting together subject experts, citizen scientists, wildlife and nature enthusiasts. In fact, if there are people here who can tell us about Sprouts, their experience of Sprouts, it would be lovely. So, we've got Jayashree Murli here, we've got Kavita, we've got Rahul Palekar. Is there anyone who'd like to tell us a little more about Sprouts and how it has impacted their lives?
I'd like to share. May I?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Venka. Okay. Actually, I met Anand almost a decade back, and I think the power and beauty, the magnificence of nature, and the way he is a storyteller.
Okay.
Like every centipede, every millipede, and the smallest of the creatures is as important as the biggest. And from him, I learned that there is nothing called a pyramid or hierarchy in nature. It's all collaborative. So that it's a huge, it is very transformational in multiple levels. And
That's
the awe
lovely.
and wonder of nature that can energize you, can you make you reflect, can become philosophical, can bring the poet in you, the storyteller in you. And if you keep nature at the center as an educator, everything else gets covered. The huge learnings from him as an educator, as a human being, and the power of diversity and inclusion that nature has. So Anand is right here now, and I think thank you for this, Menka. Anand is right here. So this is what.
That's lovely
Yeah.
insight, Yashri. Thank you so much. And Anand, welcome back. And let's hope we don't have any technical problems. Can you hear me, Anand? Anand, can you hear me? Anand, can you please unmute yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. So I was just telling everyone about Sprouts, but I think you can do a better job of that. So I wanted to just ask you a few questions about Sprouts and the kind of work that you do. And why you thought it was necessary to start an NGO of this nature. Also, what kind of response you received from citizens in Mumbai. We're seeing some of the people here who've been with you and the diverse professions they come from. But tell us from your perspective.
So, as
And
a
also,
young
what got you
person, I was very
interested
much
in nature?
mesmerized. Uh, yeah,
Okay.
so living in Bombay and working a lot across the country and traveling a lot in the mountains, I realized that there's so much of diversity that one can see in the environment. And urban people don't have the opportunity to get in touch with their wild side, to experience nature, to understand what responsibility they have towards protecting nature, because that is the only and true system of survival for this planet. So if people of the city don't realize the kind of connection they have with nature, so we used to take people for nature walks and treks in the Himalaya, as well as what we do is that we document biodiversity in great detail, and we involve people also in doing that. So the more they understand their surroundings, the more they get engaged in protecting the planet. So that's basically the premise on which the larger purpose of the NGO, which is basically environment for all, including humans and wildlife, nature, and as well as protecting the water bodies and the mountains and the
And you
coastal
have just
areas.
stepped off a bus coming back from the Karst Plateau, right?
Yeah,
You're still on your way back to the city. So
right.
tell me why is it important to preserve and protect places like the Karst Plateau?
Uh,
And tell us
one that
about the
it's a
Karst Plateau in your experience for people who may not
Yeah,
know.
I'm actually sitting in the Lonavala Mountains. I wish I could turn around the camera and show you. It's beautiful. It's waterfalls all around me, and I'm sorry I'm facing the mall. Maybe I should show you the mountains behind me. See, look, you can see that. So it's a fantastic sort of view that I am having. Kars is
And we
a
can also
natural.
see cars which are part of the problem.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So, Kars is a natural heritage place, a place of natural heritage. It's part of the Deccan Plateau, which is a 2,000-meter thick lateritic plateau, the largest that one can experience anywhere in the world. And just after the monsoon, this area transforms itself. All such lateritic plateau in the Western Ghats get filled with flowers, and that's the time that you get to see the life cycle of these plants and the butterflies connected with it, and beetles and birds, as well as scorpions, the whole diversity that is there in that area. So one understands that it's a part of a larger connected systems. The Deccan Plateau sort of becomes the dividing line, and especially the Kars Ridge that is there. On the western side, it's quite moist, and there's a lot of green cover and vegetation. And right of that is the drier part of the Deccan Plateau. So you have the semi-arid and the desert-like vegetation, and then you have this lush flower-filled plateau that is there. So the team that came with me is also very very is an enthusiastic team from the Health Awareness Center, and there were so many connections right from the small purple colored flowers to the large entire expanses of yellows and reds and pinks that one could see. So I think it's the amazement that in this stark rocky plateau, life can fight and survive, and I think it was very poetic, if I may say so. So I'd also like to add over here, Menka, are you there? Uh, that what happens is that urban people, in our gardens, we get a connect to nature, but we don't realize that there are ecosystems within the city also. There are rivers, there are lakes, there are mountain tops which are there. Our buildings are made between them, but one doesn't expect that there could be a blue whale living next to us in Bombay, or there could be the largest moth that is found in Thane or in parts of the city. So we are planning, and our ideas also have to revolve around understanding that sometimes, if you're in Dehradun, you might have a king cobra. If you're in Coimbatore, you might have an elephant, which is a part of your natural ecosystem. And how do you learn to survive with them? Bombay has got 40 leopards, so one has to learn to survive with that. So I think it's a great experience. It's been a great experience for us to connect with this whole and make people understand the connections between how nature and how uh, the climate is connected. So monsoons have been quite heavy this year and a little delayed, and we saw those impacts on the uh, flowering on the Karst Plateau. That there was very very poor flowering that is happening over there, very sporadic flowering, and one has to realize with the connections of the flowers, you also have the insects that are connected with that, so their life cycles also get affected. I think Menka should be back within a moment.
I think Anand is also facing some network issue. I hope both of them are back soon. Uh, in the meantime, probably Rahul can tell us more about Sprouts, but I'll quickly like to share an experience or a few experiences that I've had with Anand and with Sprouts before. So, as Jayashree mentioned, okay, Anand is back. We'll allow him to take it ahead. Anand, can I ask you a quick question? Over the last few weeks, I've heard
Sure,
from
sure.
you that you are organizing a sustainability conference in Mumbai. Uh,
Yeah.
Probably you would like to share about that with all of us.
Sure, definitely. So from 12th to 14th November, we are planning to have a 3-day online and maybe an offline sustainability conference, and we want to bring it to everyone's notice that right from the peace in our neighborhood to the uh, climate change that is happening in our surroundings, which I just talked about, how the rains are changing or how the temperatures are happening. Last year we had 3 cyclones. Uh, Bombay nearly missed one, but the other parts of the country, experienced them very badly. So these are kind of, if with given the IPCC report that if at 1.5 degrees temperature increase, the amount of abnormal wind conditions and abnormal temperature conditions that we are facing are very high, then agriculture is going to get affected. We've seen this pandemic happening which is because of deforestation, and deforestation is again connected with climate change. Sorry, with industrialization as well as urbanization increasing. So all these are kind of interlinked corners of the same building that we are sitting on. So if this becomes 2 degrees with so much of vehicles and so much of industrialization happening, if the release of carbon dioxide is very high, the deforestation is very very high, then urban people will face more floods. They will face more cyclonic activities on the coastal area, which will affect the fishes, which will affect the agriculture. So we're trying to create an interlinked conference where educationists, industrialists, as well as people who are designers, architects and thinkers, think tanks such as FES, which is the oldest NGO in Germany, started by Frederick Ebert, who was the first democratically elected president of Germany, and he basically set this organization up to bring in equity and social justice among people. So the ideas of democracy also have to come together, or even business organizations have to come together, and the sustainability discussion has to happen together. So this is a place where all of us and artists and poets and filmmakers are also a part of this process, that they take stories to people, they take messages to people of how we can combat climate change. But Subodh, I think you can continue. You were going to narrate us an incident.
No, I think Menka is back as well. So, yeah.
Sorry, my internet has really been acting up for the last few days. And before I
So another
disappear,
activity that we do with Sprouts is that we have an eco leadership program where we train youngsters to become eco leaders and to take up steps every citizen, every person can take up, steps to protect the environment. So Rahul has been one of the eco leaders that has been a part of our eco leadership movement. And he has been working with us for the last 4 years
So I think Anand and I are playing hide and seek with each other because I disappeared, now he's disappeared. So I don't know what he was. He may have already answered the next question that I was going to ask him, which is about the key issues that need to be addressed. And I did hear that he was talking about some of these issues and talking about the conference that's coming up, and I hope to hear more about that. So I'd also like to hear from Anand and from any of you, but what you think the issues are that need to be addressed, and what you think of that recent IPCC report that seemed very alarming. Is it as alarming as it seemed on first reading? Are things really
I'd
as
like
bad
to
as
say a few words on that. The
it?
IPCC report is alarming, not just because of what it says and about the figure being bruited about, that is 1.5 degrees or sometimes even 2 degrees. The way pollution and deforestation and other factors are going on, and the way certain natural phenomena are going on, such as the melting of the ice caps, as well as release of methane from the Siberian permafrost, etc. We are looking at, in reality, to a world which will have 3 or 4 degrees of Fahrenheit by the end of the century. And that's such a terrible thing that people just don't want to talk about it or even, consider what it implies, because it implies a huge set of horrendous conditions for all life, and that would have a huge impact. So that's what I just wanted to mention to you about the IPCC report. Anand is back. Let him continue.
Thank you, Ashwin. So, Anand, I was just asking about the IPCC report and what you may have had to say about it, whether it's as alarming as it seems on first reading. So, Ashwin had some thoughts on that, and if you would like to say something about that, that will be uh, really interesting. So I was going to ask you about the key issues that need to be addressed in the context of that report. And you did speak about a few of these when I disappeared. Can you hear me? Anand, can you hear me? Okay, so I think he'll probably be able to hear now. Anand? Anand is in a mall, so I'm amazed that he's even managed to get online at all. Anand, can you hear me? Okay. So I was also very interested in the fact that Governor of Reserve Bank the other day said something about it being, climate change being a key risk driver for the financial system. And I was wondering, what are the risks that we see in India and what should our Indian government's priorities be? So anyone has thoughts on that? Until Anand gets back.
I think it's a tough situation in the sense that we are still a growing economy. So we do have an aspirational working class that wants to see bigger growth, and we aren't among the big leagues yet, so to speak. So we do need that growth, but at the same time, we also need to balance it with sustainable design and methods of work. So it is a challenge, really, is what I feel.
And Rahul, you are an engineer, right? So
I
is
am,
there
yes.
anything that you see in your field that worries you in terms of climate change? In terms of the way things
Yes,
are done in India?
actually, even worldwide, so to say, especially in tech, there is a great importance given to a concept called planned obsolescence, which
Mm-hmm.
basically means that objects are designed so that they become unusable after say 2 or 3 years. There were
Yes.
even reports that the new iPhone updates actually made the phone slower just so that after 3 or 4 years they'll just replace the phone. So planned obsolescence is one such thing that immediately comes to mind.
Yes, in fact, I've noticed that every time one buys electronics and it tells you the warranty is 2 years, exactly 2 years, and one day later you will start having problems with it.
It,
And I've
it is
written a book
planned.
on a large engineering company, so I've asked people about this. So, Anand, can you now hear us? Can you see us? We can't hear you.
So yeah, you can hear me
So
now.
thank you, Rahul. Those were very. That was a very relevant response and a very insightful response. So thank you, Anand. To just keep you posted, I was asking him about. The governor recently said the governor of the Reserve Bank of India recently talked about financial risk because of climate change, and I wanted to know what this meant in
Yeah.
terms
So
of what the government needs to do about this.
two things happens. One thing that happens is that the buying capacity of people goes down because of recurrent issues that come up related with climate change and disasters that are related with that. People don't have the resilience. Businesses get affected, like we're seeing in the pandemic, and their buying capacity goes down. And second is production gets affected because of resources either not being available or they being very, very expensive. What people need to do is that, one, we need to get into a more resilience mode. I think governments need to make in technology which is climate resilient. We have to invest in systems which work on mass transportation and bring in consider the larger population into consideration rather than things like coastal roads or the trans harbor link, which are all private transport oriented infrastructure, or even the multiple metro projects which are coming up, which are very, very expensive and air condition oriented kind of infrastructure. Secondly, I think lot more has to be thought about in terms of how interlinkages. Lot of farmers who produce things don't reach the marketplace. So, and Fisher Folks is the same thing. It's same with, so preservation systems and linking these things better so that everything that is produced will be consumed or preserved or dried and kept to be, and not to create technology which is, as you said, you all were talking about that, which has a very short shelf life. So every time an upgradation, whether it's a computer, the e-junk and the waste that is being produced, so they don't have a cradle to cradle approach. There is a lot of dead end technology that is being produced, and one needs to really think about cyclicity. That's one thing that we can learn from nature, that nature is everything is cyclic. It starts from dust and it goes back into dust. So I think biomimetics, there's a huge amount of study that needs to go into as to how we can learn from nature, take designs, take materials. There's a lot of research that needs to be done into materials as well.
Right, but is it
We are
not
just
also
stuck yet with
true?
concrete and glass.
Right. But you're talking about coastal road and metro and expressways, and is it not also true that these are tools to build cities which are essential for a growing economy? And is there a role then for ensuring that as India gets more urbanized, that our cities are built, fundamentally built in a more sustainable way, instead of just last minute?
Absolutely. I think even this concept, I think cities means over congesting places and making these mega cities, or even concepts like the whatever slum rehabilitation centers, etc. I think they congregate the resources, our food, our water, and energy. The transmission losses that one faces in these areas is so high that resources are wasted in very great quantity. So I think decentralizing and developing in smaller micro hubs where micro hydel systems, micro
And I think we've lost Anand again. He's back. My apologies for all the technical glitches, whoever's watching the program, but that's the way it is in India. Unfortunately, that's the way we just have to deal with things and get on with it. But if anyone else has views on these questions and would like to weigh in, please feel free, because this is a conversation. So
I
anyone
just like to
else?
say a few words about
Please.
the importance of ecosystem services. For example, our water security depends on the need for forests to remain. Now, this has got two aspects. The first aspect is that you need to preserve everything. There just isn't scope for now, the so-called schemes where, oh, we will plant 1,000 trees. That's all nonsense. And the reason I'll say is because what you're promising is a tree. You're cutting down a full-fledged tree which has lived for 40 years, and then you're planting a seedling, and then you expect in 40 years climate change has hit you, all the effects, devastation has happened. The second thing is that we are fixated on planting seedlings and saplings, but we aren't looking after anything. So we'll plant, absurd figures of seeds, but the moment we planted it, it is orphaned. It is without a maibab. It doesn't get looked after. And next year, when they die, the same place will be replaced by another seedling. So that's not possible. It's better that you plant 50 and look after 50 and make them into 50 trees than planting hundreds every year and all. That's a mindset which we would love to change. The third thing which I would like to say is that if you do want to plant forests and sort out this issue, you can't do it by plantation, because a forest is more than just a set of trees. It provides a set of ecosystem services, and part of that ecosystem services also involves the preservation of biodiversity. A forest consists
Right.
of a vast number of things, right from the bacteria beneath the soil, to the fungus, to the vines, to the insects, to the every aspect, including the birds, animal, fruit, and humans, and stray dogs, everything. So planting very nice trees, looking after them, and then you got a plantation, and then calling it a forest. It's and doing it dense, the so-called Miyazaki. I'm forgetting the exact term now. That's a no-no. We have to have a sensible, eco-friendly, ecologically based reforestation plan, and that takes effort to understand what a forest is, to plant the various kinds of things, and to allow it the time to grow without it becoming into a sort of a nature park where people come and sing around.
And where it
That's
just becomes a photo opportunity, and you
yes,
just
yes,
put
yes.
that you're doing something,
Yes.
even if that
So,
really has no impact.
so if you have to restore ecosystems, you have to do it wisely. And I'm sure those who are who participate in Sprouts activities will learn a lot more from it, from Anand, whom I openly say is one of the most intelligent and knowledgeable in this field. Thank you.
Okay, I think he's heard you because he's back, right, Anand? Yes, can you hear us now?
Yes, and that's very embarrassing entry point again. Thank you so much, Ashwin.
Okay, I wanted to ask you. You did talk about this major conference on sustainability. You did say something about it earlier in the program. So, is there anything else that you feel you would like to tell us about that conference?
Yeah, that one, it's open to all participants to join, and there will be very interesting plenaries and workshops and breakout groups that are going to be focusing on roles of communities, roles of individuals. I saw a question being asked about whether the consumer should take the responsibility. So I think these are very, very valid thought processes, because I think at the end of the day, it's our life and our decision that will make a long term sort of impact on what changes that are going to happen. So do definitely consider registering for it. You can participate if you are working on any climate related projects, whether it is on agriculture, whether it's on industry, whether it is pure wildlife and biodiversity. You all can send in your papers and documents. Check up the website of sproutsllp.com, where the International Sustainability Conference 2021 has been mentioned. And do join us in. We're going to compile a book of action that citizens can take. It's going to be called a Climate Actioneers Manual. what are the decisions industries can take, what individuals can take, what societies, how do we redesign that, whether online education and is the only way that we can go ahead, or is there any other way also that we can all vision together. I think it's a common visioning process that we are trying to come together with in this conference.
Lovely. Good luck. Good luck for that. And Anand is trying to rope me into doing a workshop on poetry, in addition to editing a book on poetry by the Sprouts poets. So I'm looking forward to that. And I wanted to ask you one last question before we move on to the readings. And in your view, what are the three most important things that we as individuals, as ordinary citizens, can do in our everyday lives to cause change, to remedy the situation? I mean, what the governments do, all these are big issues, but what can we do in the small, everyday things in our lives? What are the three most important things?
I think impact on the planet, and so we have to really every time we want to buy, whether it's a bread or a biscuit or a car or a fridge, we have to really be consider, we have to weigh out our options and create a very good sustainable life system that is there. Second is that the one when the lifestyle comes in, with that also comes in how do you handle your waste. If we start becoming responsible, destroy our other ecosystems like lakes and mountain slopes. Like we were at Thosegar Plateau, we were at various places, and there was plastic. It's bottles and bags and chips packets. Everything has been scattered all over the place. So one has to be very careful and responsible about how we dispose our waste material. If we start recycling at home, setting up these at a societal level, it will bring about a very, very large change. And second thing is that, of course, giving birth to children, or I think the population game that is there, I think everything is related with the numbers that we have. The lesser, people on this planet, it is going to definitely lesser carbon footprint, more adoption friendly process, inclusive societies. I think it's not just supporting farmers, supporting small industries and businesses. So I think there's a lot of support that we can provide for to be a climate friendly society. And if we get affected, imagine the people who are less privileged than us, how much more they might be getting affected. So I think one has to include more communities, think about the wild, about the creatures in the water ecosystems, and then the communities that are dependent on that, what you call as the artisanal communities, whether it is a fisherman, whether it is a farmer, whether it's a migrant grazier, or the migrant laborers. They all are interconnected with each other. So I think one has to realize that every action, the trickle down as well as the waste that we create, all of these are going to have an impact on the planet.
Thank you, Anand. I hope
Anybody would like to add anything else?
listen to what you're saying.
Yeah.
I hope people listen to what you're saying and take this seriously, because it is really getting to a point where we can't afford to ignore it anymore. And I think an important way of getting this message across is through the poetry that people write. And I was really delighted to read some of the poems that your members who are here today have written, and other people who may not be represented here, but who are writing and expressing the wonder of nature and the importance of preserving it. And I'm looking forward to the readings today. So can we now move on to Colonel Ashwin Baindur? Is he here? Yes, he's here. So Ashwin, you have told us, you said some very important things about the climate change and about the way we deal with it. And now we want to hear your poetry. So let me just introduce you quickly to the audience. So Colonel Ashwin Baindur is a retired army officer from Pune. He's deeply interested in nature, which is a given since he's here. But what is interesting is that he's a mentor of a children's nature club, the military historian and a Wikipedian. So Ashwin says that he pens doggerel when the urge comes up upon him. So let's hear some of your writing, Ashwin. I'm sorry to interrupt, Ashwin. We can't hear you. Please unmute.
Oh, so sorry. My apologies to all of you. Thank you so much. Today I will be reading to you a poem titled The Spotted Owlet, Natural History in Verse. I wrote it, so to read aloud to the children of my nature club. And it's a little whimsical, but children enjoy this sort of thing. It's meant to introduce them to the natural history aspects of one of the common birds of the College of Military Engineering campus where I lived for many years. Imagine yourself to be, on a quiet road in a military campus where there are bungalows on one side, and on the other side there is wild area which has got babul trees and thorny trees, tall grass, generally flat. And this is the bird, the spotted owlet. It's very common. You can see it in the cities. You can see it in the surrounding areas. In the jungle, it has got different relatives which are there. And it is to introduce this bird that I wrote this poem. So with your permission now, I'll start reading the poem out. The Spotted Owlet, Natural History in Verse. When I go for an evening walk along the tree-lined CME street, there is bound to be an interesting creature or two that I'm sure to meet. Sometimes it's a palm civet or a nightjar with chuff chuff call. Mostly it's just a little owlet, grey spotted but half foot tall. Not just in Pune is he found, in South Asia, wherever he can be, from sunny Mekran to rainy Indochina, and from Kashmir to Kanyakumari. People in our north call him Chugad, Khusatia, or even Udlu. In Bengal, he is called Kuture Pencha, and in Sindh, he is known as Chibiru. Some foolish people think him a bad omen. He is named after wise Athene. He bobs his head to Brahma for his name. In mythology, he carries Lakshmi. An owlet pair are always to be found on the signpost of 253B, that's my house, from where they are perched in shadow, but the lighted path they can see. On this road, they aren't quite alone. I find them in almost any tree. Every 50 yards or outside each garage, we indeed have an owlie colony. The little ones of the field and garden are welcome guests to their feast. Mice, centipedes, insects, beetles, even snakes and scorpions they eat. Their house is on a little shelf between the rafters and my bungalow roof. From outside there is very little sign. Some pellets on the floor is my only proof that a quaint little family dwells in my bungalow quietly along with me and helps look after my interests by eating small rodentry. November to April is their special time to start a little family. Beginning with 4 white spherical eggs, the fledglings fly away in weeks 3. A noisier pair I'm yet to find. So bold and confident are they. Chiruk, chiruk, they screech at dawn, and chirwak, chirwak, ending day. I like the owlets very, very much, though they watch me very closely. Now he bobs his head, she turns hers around. I'm sure they also like me. Thank you.
That was marvelous, Ashwin. Thank you so much for that. And I'm so glad that you are writing poetry and trying to introduce children to nature, because really, unless we talk to children about these issues, how are we going to change things in the future? So thank you for that. And now maybe Kavita Gunderia can join us. And just as an example of children making a difference, in fact, Kavita's interest in nature comes from the fact that her own son loves birding, right, Kavita? So you
Yes,
can read his
that's right.
bio there. And
Yes, Menka, that's right. Uh, so my son's been a birder since a very young age, and he developed this hobby quite on his own through observation. And he loved to look at birds around him, even in urban areas. And I confess I was quite oblivious and blind to the kind of diversity we have, even in a place like Mumbai. And observing them along with him opened my eyes to the world of birds around us. And now I really look forward to spotting them even on evening walks in the city, or of course when we travel outside to areas where the habitat is more suitable to them. So I have my son to thank for introducing me to this wonderful world.
lovely. Can we hear the poem?
Yes. The poem I'm about to read captures, or rather reflects on a very happy experience that I had kayaking along the Kerala backwaters. There is a natural habitat of white-throated kingfishers, and you can see them very close to the waterline when you're on a kayak and really observe how they go about hunting their prey, their food. So the poem is called Kingfishers on the Meenachil. My kayak snaked along the Meenachil with the king, the diving blue flash leading me ever deeper as I raced towards the finish. The hunter's precision rewarded him with a slippery, scaly prize, relished in solitude somewhere above. The children splashing drowned out the lapping of my oar and fought with energy the rhythmic slapping of saris on the stones nearby. A cycle meandered by the shore, seemingly uninterested in its destination. Children chased a kite, the only occurrences of importance to rival the chase of the king. Yet again he emerged, victorious and wet, shaking off the river, a testament to his talent. The world moved in time lapse as my oars continued their chant, racing ahead on the Meenachal. Thank you.
Thank you, Kavita. That was lovely.
Thank you,
And
Milka.
next, may I call on Jayashree Murali to join us?
Yes. Thank you.
Jayashree also works with children. She's an educator. And I don't know if you can read that clearly, but she's based in Mumbai and she's been impacted for 3 decades. Her life has been impacted by the development sector. And she's been a member of the management team and academic committees in the NGO Vidya. And she's contributed to the language and life skills and nature education curricular areas. What is really, really very commendable is she led the team in setting up community reading corners and integrating libraries into the classroom. And she's brought in children's literature festivals to the slums. That's amazing. And some of her notable collaborations include literature as a peace building tool in cross border friendships, addressing LGBT inclusion, an eco school project, and setting teacher development programs. And she says the story and the song and the poetry and the art are her friends, as are the sparrows. Jayashree, stage is yours.
Yeah. Thank you, Menka. Um, the, the poetry is titled I Have No Poetry. I have no poetry. Dried leaves crackle in shallow ponds. Dried leaves crackle in shallow ponds filled with hot summer waves, and dried clothes lie folded in neat rows with cold aftershaves. And dried clothes lie folded in neat rows with cold aftershaves. Dried ink shaken in quilled pens, Wait for the words to pour, and my dried heart lies in bandages cold. And my dried heart lies in bandages cold, for I have no poetry that it can hold. I have no poetry that it can hold. Thank you.
Thank you, Jayashree. It was a lovely poem and a very different kind of poem. Next, may I ask Lieutenant Commander Praveen Tulpule to join us. Is he here? There he is. So, Praveen Tulpule has, again, I don't know if you can read that. So, let me just tell you that his other name is Happy the Clown. And he actually left a life in the services to be able to become a clown, and he's doing this professionally. He was born to meet, entertain, and spread good cheer among patients in hospitals, children in orphanages, shelters, old age homes, and schools. He's been a happiness ambassador, that's what he calls himself, of an MNC for over 2 decades, and God knows MNCs need happiness ambassadors, Praveen. He's a TEDx speaker, and he's also the subject of many documentary films, such as The Invincible Indians from Bajaj Vikrant and Pearls of India by Rajnikanda Silver Pearls. So you must go online and look that up, everyone. And now, Praveen, all yours.
Thank you, Menkaji, and thank you this wonderful crowd that I have here. I do write poetry, but I seldom read it because most often my handwriting I cannot read back. The piece that I've written right now is a little late into the season. It's about a beautiful scent called Petrichor. A little background doesn't require to be said here. Everybody knows what's Petrichor. We enjoy it. But a little trivia, there's a place in North India called Kanoj, which is perhaps the place where all ittars and perfumes are drawn out from their sources. And Kanoj is one of the places now that is experimenting, or perhaps is already successfully developing Petrichor. It's called Mittika Ittar, yeah, Mittika Attar. And hopefully we should start getting it in sprays or bottles, something like this. So this is my offering. I hope, because I don't read, I may falter. And if I falter, I'm a clown. So just accept it. Thank you so much. Here goes. Petrichor. Bearing the heat bravely, like a blow to the chin. The secret, a scent lies buried within. Difficult? Nay, impossible, I emphasize, in any lab to recreate or synthesize. A simple code, a signal, and it gets released. Breathe there a soul with it has not been pleased. Under the scorching sun, for months it does burn. Our poor, dry, parched earth, for what does it yearn? A few drops, a light shower, and a scent percolates, sweeter than any flower. Ask me to describe it, and miserably I will fail. Ambrosial this scent one can ever inhale. Better than the best that's ever been bottled. Left many an alchemist completely boggled. Memories it does trigger, that bewitching smell. Magical, simply, that's all I can tell. Lift your shoulders and draw in the air, deep. Savor the beauty as long as you can keep. From childhood to teens, and puppy love to crush. In a moment, all to the fore it does rush. Taking you aboard a time machine for a quick view of all good you have ever seen. Enjoy the times that come with the rain. It's a boon, dear, not a bane. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Praveen. Unfortunately, I missed the first few lines because my internet went off again. But I'm lucky. I'm glad I caught the rest of it. And I do have the printout, so I will read that. And now may I call upon Tisha Thomas. So Tisha is a freelance copywriter, creative strategist, brand consultant. She writes fiction and poetry, and her poems can be found on Poems by Tisha on Instagram. Tisha, one day you have to tell me how to use Instagram properly. But now over to you.
Sure. All right. So I will be reading two poems today, and both these poems are inspired from the time that I have spent in nature. The first poem, titled "Look," is about if you only stop to look, you will see the amazing biodiversity around you. And I name a few of a lot of the species that you will actually find around you. If you only, stop to look and see. And the second poem I will introduce once I'm done with the first. So, starting off, the first poem is called "Look." Look, 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 see, hidden in the undergrowth. A jeweled bug, a shiny snail, a wiggling worm, a forest quail, a molting snake, a tiny vole. Look quick, escaping down his hole. Look, 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 see, hidden in the canopy. A barbet, green as the leaves, a bee-eater, twittering, a flash of gold, an oriole, a blushing parakeet family. A tutting woodpecker at work, a drongo, watchman on alert, a snoozing bat, a nestling owl, all safe from raptors on the prowl. Look, 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 see, flitting from flowers perched on leaves, a windmill rose, tiger, raven, a Mormon peacock, zebra, helen, a mime, a jay, a blue bottle even, an emigrant damsel and a dragon. All myths pale in comparison to what flies in any garden. All around us, every minute, if we'd only care to see it. Wildlife thrives on ground in skies, enough to leave us mesmerized. Such beauty, ingenuity, variety. Look, 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 see. So that was about observing all the amazing biodiversity around us. And moving on to the second poem, it's called River. And it's inspired from my time spent in the Parvati Valley when I was on a trek. And it is about the river Beas, but it could be any river, and I'll just start. Yes. River. The river sprung forth from ice. The sun had warmed its soul, and its spirit would suffice the valley down below. But on the stony mountainside, where nothing really grows, the river breaks, the river strikes a metal sheet of snow. And to its thunderous rhythm we dance to kill the cold. Yes, that's it for me. Those are my two poems.
Thank you, Tisha. That was lovely. So a little earlier in the program, Rahul Palikar spoke about planned obsolescence and his concerns as an engineer. And he's also working on, he's a poet by hobby, he says, and he often wishes to escape the fast-paced city to go live in nature. He's an avid reader who prefers books to other media. He's interested in cricket, philosophy, cuisine, and he hopes to travel the world someday. Rahul, we all wish we could do that. Let's hope COVID allows us to move out as soon as possible. Rahul, all yours. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. The title of my poem is Human Nature. In it, I wish to convey how we are not separate from the nature we see around us, but are a part of it. And I've written it with a simple rhyme scheme. So I'll start. We are the universe's attempt at experiencing itself. I read these lines somewhere and found them nice. They made me feel a part of a bigger whole, a rod or a cone in nature's eyes. Sweeping vistas take our breaths away, from icy plains to endless skies, inspiring us with adventure and wonder, and the lofty goals to which we strive. Quaint backwoods are mellow and lovely, filled with bees, beetles, and dragonflies. A little walk through their narrow tracks shows how beauty hides in plain sight. An apartment-sized desert patch is teeming with vibrant life, teaching us there's much to glean even in the most barren times. The deep, dark, and forbidding oceans hide treasures that we cannot find, telling us to guard our virtues, have depth of character, to be wise. The ever hustling urban cities are home to hawks, cats, and mice who fight for space and scavenge for food, much like us, to stay alive. If nature could say something, she'd say, we aren't so different, you and I. You're in my image, and I just represent all the potential you can realize. So let's stop our wasteful ways at once, and we'll see the benefits materialize. We could still save nature, and she'd save us if we only had the courage to try. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rahul. It's really interesting when people who do other things like engineering are interested in poetry and are using it to talk about important issues. So I look forward to seeing more poetry by you, Rahul. And now may I call upon Subodh Khanolkar, if you can, is that clear? Can you read that? So he's also an engineer, interdisciplinary engineer, and he's working on solutions that reduce the amount of batteries that are ending up in landfills. And he says that once in a while daydreaming, he writes a few lines that can be passed as poetry. So Subodh, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Menka. To start off, I'll say I'm very glad, I'm very happy, and very thankful to be here. The poems that I've heard so far, they have been fantastic, and I'll be very honest. Uh, I just write once in a while, and I really don't know if that can be called poetry. But listening to everyone over here, it inspires me to write. So thank you, everyone. Uh, what I'm going to read, I call it Stolen Dream. Putting titles to whatever I write does not come easily to me, but this was by far the easiest to give a name to. It's called Stolen Dream because once I wrote this, the first 4 or 5 people who read this, their their feedback was, "You have just stolen our dream." So probably I have stolen many people's dream. So here it is. Through the Syrian valley shines the tender sun. Up from my peaceful night, when the stone walls of my house bounce its light, I begin my day. At a distance, I hear the mischievous rivulet and rocks play. With unassuming grace, morning birds chirp. Happy kids run to their school, and under the banyan tree, to school songs they sway. I fulfill my hunger with volumes of books I ever so longed to read. I quench my thirst with sweet fruits that trees here in abundance lay. I worship the flowers, I worship the bees, I worship the birds, and all that I owe them to those under the humble banyan I try to repay. Through the valley again, the sun leaves with another day's promise. The sky turns crimson. This is heaven, I know. To nature's beauty I witnessed, I thank and pray. The birds are now in their roosts. Into my stone house I too go. I eat the humble meal I cook, and content I wait for the cicadas to sing me to bed today. Ah, my dream, I will live it someday. In there, but I see, is enough room for you and me. So join me, please, if you may. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Subodh. You did say something about not writing too much, writing only occasionally. I can tell you that that many poets who say that they are poets or who are known as poets also write very little. I'm a prime example. Like I can go for 2 years without writing a single poem, and that's okay because the words will find their own way when the time is right. So keep writing. So our last
Thank you.
poet for the evening is Shruti Kulkarni, and I hope Shruti has joined us. She was coming in from another session somewhere.
I'm here.
Oh, lovely. Okay. So Shruti is a poet, artist, dancer, and independent filmmaker in the development sector. She's based in Bangalore. And she says that one of her greatest joys is taking long walks through quiet wilderness. And she finds that her poems are a warm invitation to connect with the loving meditative space within. And they're centered on lessons of love and acceptance, movement and stillness, and loss, grief, resilience. Shruti, please read your poem.
Thank you so much, Menika. Good evening, everyone. Such beautiful poems you all have shared makes me think that we do live in such a beautiful world. I'm joining you all from Bangalore today, and one thing about Bangalore which is very, very special to me is that the color palette changes with every season, and there are so many beautiful trees. So this poem is about the trees that I see in Bangalore, and it's again an invitation to grow forests within. So please join me. How to grow forests within? Try talking to a tree. You don't have to go to forest to do this. That tabibuya on that busy road will speak to you through its soft colors. Now Millingtonia may drive you nuts, talking to you through its intoxicating aroma. Gulmohar in its fiery red will talk and mostly possess you. Jacarandas, oh boy, they are the silent communicators. You have to feel them. Pongamia is talkative and will shower conversations through its moon buds. And silk cotton will also talk, silkily soft through its cottonseed pods. Collect the seeds, flowers, and silk. Make a poem pillow for the sweetest sleep that you'll ever know. Now, a tree whose name you do not know will also talk to you tenderly. They all do. And when you have known how not to just talk but connect with trees, you will find dense forests growing within you. My wish for you, my friend, is may you always carry forests within you and grow forests wherever you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Shruti. That was so beautiful. And that brings us to the end of the readings. And I hope we can all grow forests within and look after the forest that we already have outside. 100,000 Poets for Change is a global movement that is focused on the issues of peace, justice, and sustainability, as seen through local lens. And I think all these three are connected. Without one, you cannot have the other. So this is a really, really important message that 100 TPC, 100,000 Poets for Change, is trying to spread globally. And I think today's program has done tremendous good in terms of being able to spread this message. Anand, before we wrap up, is there anything that you would like to leave us with, a last thought, a message, anything that you think is important to say about climate change, sustainability?
Yeah, so before I do that, I'd definitely like to thank Mansi and Nitya from Kitab Khana for hosting us and inviting us. Thank you, Menka, also, and TPC, 1000 Poets for Change, and Amruta from my team, who's helped us put together this whole show today. But I think what message we can give from this is that everybody can talk and help in controlling, bringing down the impacts of climate change. Whether you are a poet, whether you are a musician, whether you're a dancer, whether you're a magician, whether you're a teacher, you're a scientist, whether you're just a ordinary, simple office going, or a dabbawala also for that matter. I think everybody, and of course engineers, we've got two good big engineers and several others. I think there is a lot that we can all do together. So we need to put our heads together. We need to put our, definitely grow forests in our heart. Feel for.
Have we lost Anand again? Oh dear. And this is how the universe conspires to silence anyone who's talking sense in the world. Okay, I think he's coming back. Anand, we can see you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, one last thing I would like to say is that whether it is the government or whether it is an individual, I think one thing we should learn from nature is that every opportunity we get to redesign things, relook at things in a new manner, I think we should take that opportunity, because nature has shown this through so many ice ages, through so many volcanic explosions. Everything, thousands of creatures have gone extinct and new creatures have come into this planet. So if the current style of doing things might seem dangerous, then maybe we need to completely dump that technology and come up with more resilient, much more eco-friendly and earth-friendly technology or other creature-friendly technology. So I think it's time to change every. And I think 2020 vision has given us this idea that I think we need to relook at how we are living our lives in a very, very strong way. That's all I want to say. Thanks.
And we're going to have many, many more people talking about these issues at your conference. Tell us the dates again, Anand, and how people can be a part of this.
The conference
how can they participate?
Be on the November 12th, 13th, 14th, which is 12th is Dr. Salim Ali's birthday, and 14th is Children's Day celebrated in India. And we can join. It's for online conference. There is no registration fee. You just visit the website of sproutsllp.com, and you will see the poster of the conference. Or you can go to @Sprouts Outdoors on Instagram or Facebook, and you will find the link for the conference from there. So do register and join us. And this pre-conference event where we talked about nature and sustainability through various aspects. So Jayashree, we soon hope that you will have a lot more poetry in you, and I hope that all the others, whether it's the owlets or whether it's the rivers in Kerala, or whether it's the petrichor, it's going to really bring in a lot of fragrance in our life. And yeah, look and see. There is a lot to look and there's a lot to see, and also hear others what the nature is trying to tell us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anand. It has been a real pleasure working with you, doing this program, partnering with you. And I look forward to many more collaborations. And thank you to all the poets who participated. Without you, this wouldn't have happened. And of course, Amrita Sumaya and Mansi and the team at Kitab Khana for all their help. Despite all the technical glitches that we've been having to deal with, the fact is the online format allows us to come together from different places, which is a good thing. So let's look at the positive side of that. And it also helps us spread the message better and wider. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here.
And let's come.
See you then. Thank you again. And see you soon. See you at the conference.